What up, peeps? It's your girl Dash come back to Front Takes. Well, it's that time, you guys. It's movie review time, and this is for Spider-Man's No Way Home. Now, before I get into it, I'm just going to let it be known this is going to be spoiler discussion. I have no desire to do anything spoiler free. I really want to just get into the meat of this movie because I literally had so much fun watching this in the theater, and it was a lot of us in there watching this film. It was just I'm gonna say it because normally I would wait to the end, but literally I just feel like this truly the nostalgia, the fan service. John Watson missed a beat being his, third, installment in regards to the Spider-Man franchise, him circa Tom Holland. And he did not disappoint. So, you know what? With that said, let's go and jump into it. Now, just kind of setting it up, as you all know, being that we had the incident that happened prior with the second installment of the film with Mysterio basically revealing the true identity of Spider-Man and literally causing a ripple effect of things to happen where now that people know it is Peter Parker, anybody close to him, is in question of did you know, how much did you know, being that we were dealing with the information of, certain drones, played a part, in the death of Mysterio and what is this? And of course, these things being, a part of Stark Industries and just things of that nature. We, of course, get reintroduced to seeing, of course, Happy Hogan. He comes back, and I like how we see the setup where they're, being kind of, interrogated and about FBI and all that. And it was just very interesting because one in particular character, it was so nice to see, and somebody in the theater literally lost their minds, but I'm not surprised. It was Charlie Cox who came to play Matt Murdock, and it was just so refreshing because I'm such a fan of him when he did the show Daredevil. So that was a nice little treat to see right off the cuff. I had heard some whispers. I think he was in it, but I don't know if I believe or whatever and all. But people can just be making up stuff, so I just kind of just wanted to leave it alone. Like I'm going to wait till the movie comes out, and whatever I see surprises me, then that's great. That was a lovely surprise, and just from there, you're dealing with it now where Tom has eventually found a way to try to get back to some sort of normalcy, going back to school, him running into, of course, people in charge of school, like the principal and all that. You see, was it JB Smith, Mr. I think Dell, if I'm not mistaken, and them making shrines, within the space of the school. I was just like, oh my God. And then, of course, the kids. I mean, pictures like, okay, it's Peter. You've seen him many times. All of a sudden, half these people probably didn't pay no mind to him as usual. That's how it kind of is in high school. And then the one who was really irking my nerves in the last two films, Flash Thompson. I'm just like, boy, sit down. He wants to be a part of the crew. You were one of the worst, the way you always treated him, like a little minor little bully. And all of a sudden, I want him to call me like I'm a friend or whatever. Just annoying, but per usual. But you just kind of see where he's trying to. You see a scene of him with MJ reading like an article from a paper and him just wanting to stay up on the top of the thing. It's like the rooftop, and it kind of comes with the territory. I remember think in the first, maybe the first and the second movie, he really's always had this feeling and this need to want to be kind of more well known and the accolades with it and all that. Never to this extent being that you're being exposed in such a harmful way that people think that you are part of the reason Mysterio's, dead. And you see how some people are making it where they think, I believe Mysterio. You see little hints of that here and there, spray painted here, this and all that, and no one really wanting to believe. And there's one particular person played by J.K. Simmons, excuse me, Jameson. He just barking up with his podcast and his little news coverage, trying to make, Spider-Man out to be just a villain outright. And of course, now that we know it's Peter Parker, just adding on the fuel to the fire. It's just so annoying. But I do love me some of J.K. Simmons, so it's all good. But what sets up where we finally see, like we saw in the trailer, why that Peter has to go to Doctor Strange is because as time goes on, him, Ned, and MJ, they want to apply for schools and see who they can get in. So of course they do all the, whichever ones they pick. And you see the part with, Peter and Aunt May going through a couple of them. They came, oh, she's angry. And he's like, oh no, that's not, that didn't work out. Okay, okay. He gets onto one of the ones that they all talked about, which was MIT. And it looks like they don't get into it because during their interrogation, Ned and them come in, MJ come in and all that. It's almost like you're doomed by association. So pretty much where this school is just like, due to recent, situations, whatever, at this time, we're not going to, they decided, they're not going to let them come to the school. And it kind of sets up a situation where he definitely has to go and talk to Dr. Strange. So you see the scene of him going to him, asking him to help him. And at first he's like, what he would need to do. I can't do that. And I like how eventually we get segued to Wong showing up. He decides he has a spell he can use. And when he starts a spell, he's doing fine. But every time he's trying to make it where nobody will remember him, he keeps wanting to carve off a couple of people, you know, MJ being one, then Ned, then Aunt May. And it gets to the point where it causes a kind of like a chain of events that happen with the spell where, of course, Strange has to inhabit this into this little ball and eventually has to lock it up in some sort of cube, whatever. And now, due to the fact that this happened, he doesn't realize certain things have transpired due to that spell, and certain things have kind of found their way over into our universe. And that's when we do get the conversation between him and Peter, where there is other multi-universes. So it's a lot that he's not aware of, and I'm talking about Peter. Definitely Doctor Strange is definitely aware of some things, but now it's kind of out there where now that we have some nice little visitors here, this is the things that can happen when we do said magic. So I like how we eventually get introduced or reintroduced, I'll say, to some lovely characters, aka villains. Of course, one that I saw in the trailer, and I made it my only trailer to watch, was the one with, of course, Dr. Octavius, played by Alfred Molina. I'm a fan of him, love me some him. And I just love his scene with Peter. Peter's trying to find a way to talk to a chancellor from MIT. And in the midst of that, comes into contact with Dr. Ock, and they kind of get into it. And their fight sequence was very well done. And at a point where it almost causes him, to put the chancellor into a precarious situation where she could have lost her life and all that. But I will say she at least sees that he rose to the occasion, calls him a hero. It's like, I'm going to speak to the people and all that. So he's kind of feeling like, okay, this whole thing wasn't just. And then you're dealing with him having to deal with Dr. Ock. Now, prior to that, I will say, knowing that Dr. Strange and Peter have to come up with something to get these particular character or these individuals to them, in a particularly isolated space, so we can figure out how to deal with them and then send them back to their universe. And Dr. Ock being really the first one. And then you do get a little glimpse, if you saw it was in a trailer, of Green Goblin, also aka Norman, played by William Dafoe, which is one of my favorites right there. And that's when you see one has already been captured, and that was the Lizard. Now, Doctor Strange did that. I am kind of bummed that we didn't get to see that. I would have loved to seen that scene of him getting it, because we already know how the Lizard was in the movies of Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. So I'm just like, okay, we missed out on opportunity, but it is what it is. Let me carry on. So you kind of just see the interaction of him getting to see, who these individuals are. You also get to see him eventually get introduced to Electro, played by Jamie Foxx. Loved his scene where they're going out trying to find him using the help of Ned and MJ. And his scene, and also we get introduced again to Sandman. So that's all collectively all the particular characters, and it's considered the villains. And it was just interesting because I'm glad we get to flush a little bit of them out separately, where you get a little bit of insight and all that. Granted, when they see Peter, they're thinking they're dealing with their own Parker, their Spider-Man, but it's actually ours, which is Tom Holland. So, everything's kind of, as they can see. And of course, with Jamie Foxx's Electro, he's just like, I knew something. I didn't know where I was in what universe and all, but it does feel different. I like the way this feels, and he's just all into it. But I like how eventually they were to kind of stop him from charging up, dealing with the powers out there. And he's just standing there butterball. I was just like, okay, here we go. And same as I'm trying not to act like I see it. It is what it is. But I like how eventually he's able to, help Electro in his situation, and eventually deals with him getting put into one of the spaces, and also Sandman. And then it's just pretty much the only one left is Green Goblin, because he was able to eventually get away. And it looks like he ends up going to see Aunt May, because he already made his detours around where he went to his old place of his business, and trying to find his son and all that, and things are just not what they seem to appear to be, because of course he's in another universe. He doesn't know what's going on. He sees Peter Parker, and he's like, that's not my Peter, hence whichever. But with him, he comes off like, of course, feeling a little lost, dealing with a lot of issues and all that, definitely mental issues, but they don't know to what extent with him just yet. And of course you see Peter kind of filling him out. But I will say it is what it is, because with that one, he a little sneaky one, and rightfully so. Just William Dafoe plays him just literally effortlessly, and I was here for it. So from there, you just kind of see where they start to kind of try to help each other, and they decide we're going to try to see if we can kind of cure you. I don't want to kill you. And even Aunt May had a conversation with Peter. Was like, we can't deal with this. They need to go back. Whatever. This is not my fight. And she was like, we help people. You see how these people who are mostly homeless people coming to her place of business to be serviced, to be helped. That's your thing. With power comes great responsibility, which she kind of states to him, and he kind of hears what she's saying, and it's a little bit of conflict. But then in an instance, he starts to realize from what his aunt is saying to him, maybe we can do something. No, you already know how Dr. Strange feels. He's like, we need to send him back and get time for this. That's like, they're going to die when they get back there dealing with their own Spider-Man. That's just how it is. He's straight cutthroat, and it's just honestly, I see what his appeal is with that, because it's true. When you see how much damage they've done in their particular universe, that's what you would think. So you see Peter trying to work on something to help Dr. Ock with his situation with his, tentacles, because they're misbehaving, they're acting up where they're not working in his favor. Peter is able to find a way to do it, even though he's fighting him tooth and nail and doesn't want it, but then he's appreciative. And then he makes a statement in it. He's just like, my mind, I don't hear all these voices and all that. Clarity, and he's like, hello. And just to everybody, he sees Norman, aka, Green Goblin, and just kind of reconnecting a little bit. And then, the other people are like, okay, we see what's kind of going on here. So of course Electro's letting them help on him in regards to this, but he's hesitant, but he's still going along with it. Sandman's kind of, staying in the back or whichever. He's, about himself because he wants to get back to his daughter. But the one who definitely should be watched, and just his mannerism and behavior at time, was Norman, which I thought was really interesting. But then he shows his true colors. He comes out at the most inopportune time. Electro was almost done with his little situation where he would be good to go and all that. And he's like, there's nothing wrong with us. We don't need to do this so because of what, Peter wants and all that. And that's when he shows up, and he had to try to find a way to get Aunt May out of there so she's not in a bad situation, because, of course, Peter can find ways to get up out of this, whatever, to cause less irreparable damage. But Aunt May, she doesn't have no power. She needs to get out of there. And that's when all ensues, and Green Goblin just takes effect. Electro's like, yeah, I don't need, he's ripping it out, whatever, and all that. And he likes the power that's here in this universe, whatever. So he don't want to part. Sandman's like, okay, yeah, I wasn't here for you this anyway. And, Lizard's in a truck outside, whatever, trying to stay contained. But he was like, I knew certain things would happen because that was brought up while they were all, in their own little cage space. Like, there can be consequences to you feeling the need to want to be in charge of taking in charge of certain situations. Hence, Peter feeling the need to do this, because when he made the decision to want to do this and try to cure him, he put Dr. Strange in a situation where he's in a portal, he can't help him. He took the cube, whatever, when he was trying to explain to him, this is what you need to do, took his ring. It was just a lie. Gave the ring to Ned, so they going, and also gave them the box, the little cubes for them to watch over it. If they do something, they hit that little button and send them on their way. But we're going to try to see if this cure works first, whatever, to redeem them some sort of way, and then send them back home. Now, in the midst of this is when the parts really pick up, and I'm just here for it, because we finally get to see two of our other favorite Spider-Mans. And I like the way Ned is starting to realize he might have a little bit of tingling, as he put it in the film, where he's able to find a way to open up the portal. And at first you're thinking MJ and Ned are looking for their Peter, and they open up and they see it, unbeknownst to us, but some of us in the theater caught it. That ain't your Peter. And you can look at almost the suit to tell as well. And it was Andrew Garfield. And I'm going to tell you, in my theater, it was ridiculous. And we just knew if we're seeing him, we know who's coming up next. And it was just nice because, of course, MJ puts him through some sort of little task. Ned's Lola, she made him do something for her too. And I just like how she kept going back and forth, speaking her native and speaking in English and everything and all that, because we just got a kick out of that. That was just such a cute scene. But he's there, and then eventually they open up another portal for another Peter, and then Tobey Maguire came through. But I will tell you this, when he came through, I thought it was rather funny because he's not in his suit in the moment. He looks like he was probably in the midst of probably just walking around doing something and all that. But what's funny is like, okay, this port comes up and you see it, I'll just go ahead and go through. Oh, okay. nothing, weird about that, but I'll walk through it anyway. And it's just nice how they are both there. And it was just, the nostalgia starts to really kick in. And I just love that. And then just them realizing they need to get to the aid, because with all the destruction that happened, May gets hurt. And at first we don't know how hurt she was, to the point, because she keeps saying, like, let me, catch my breath and catch her breath, and then he has to lay her down, and then she eventually has passed. And it's just so sad. And eventually Peter goes somewhere, and I like how the guys, they're like, we're trying to find him. It's like, where is it? Do you have a place, you know, that you think that he would go to, that he would always go to if he needs to think, needs to be by himself? Of course, Andrew and Toby have one for them for their particular spaces when they were in their movies. And of course, MJ does remember. And of course, it is the rooftop where they were. And they show up, they console him, Ned and MJ, and eventually she introduces them to the other two Spider-Mans. And at first he's kind of hesitant when they're like, we understand. He's like, I don't, you can't, really understand, what I'm going through, whichever. I feel responsible. And I love how we set it up, because when it comes to the emotional scenes, Tom definitely can show it. I know Toby can, and Andrew brought it too. And it was just nice for them to explain to him, no, we really do. And Andrew explained to him losing his MJ. And then, of course, Toby explained to him about, his uncle. And it was just so sad to go. Ben, it was just really sad. And just them getting very emotional about it and making him see, you know, that you're not alone, and the anger he probably is feeling, and how Toby had explained to him how he found the person that did this and he dealt with it, but it brought no comfort. It didn't bring him back. And it was just like, just knowing and festering what all, because even Andrew said the same thing, eating at me, whether or not I had to break free of this type of feeling and the rage and the things I were feeling, otherwise it would just sunken into you and just overpower you and take you to a bad place. And that was really good. I love that scene, but I like how eventually they decided to work together, work on getting this cure. They all put their minds together to figure out what they need to do. And in the midst of that, what I did enjoy as well between the three guys was the fact that they started, just kind of, as time went on, after they did, and they were kind of getting ready on the Empire State Building and all that for the showdown, whatever, just talking about, how does your web thing work? Oh, yours comes out, whatever. They had no idea. But of course, with Tom and them, there's a little bit different with this because of the way Tom showed off where his thing was attached to his arm. And then of course how Andrew shows how he has to put his in and whichever. So it was nice to know that they weren't aware. Of course we all watched the film, so we know how, Toby's, but I like how Toby's more realistic, because that's exactly how it was supposed to be. And eventually you see that. Then we get into, of course, them setting the groundwork for that. MJ and Ned, they have the actual cube, and they have to stay out of sight, whichever with that. Don't let them get their hands on, because they know that's what will get rid of them, and they'll be sent back. And then after that, when they start kind of trying to figure out how to deal with each of the individual villains, there's no order. They're just kind of going all over the place. And then that's when they have to kind of eventually come back together, work together. And the thing I like is the discussion, because it was just like Toby and Andrew's Spider-Man, they don't work together. They always did everything, there was no group. So it was always just, them. And now with Tom's like, I've worked with a group and a team with them and all that. So we're going to do it like this. We're going to distance this, and then we're going to work with this, deal with this one villain, and then we'll work with the next one. I'm going to tell you like this. The scene of them getting ready to deal with the villains, when they were in their stance, all three of them, I swear to goodness, the audience, that right there, I would just love that on a shirt, and better yet, even on a poster, that all three of them are in their own stance. I was so here for it. I literally was just like, I felt like a freaking child watching that scene at that moment, because I was just so giddy. It was really good. And then of course they do what they got to do to deal with Sandman turning back where he's inhuman. Then you see them trying to deal with Lizard, trying to keep him out of the way. And then eventually Ock shows up to help, to deal with Electro and all that. And eventually, with his powers and all. And then still dealing with, of course, the Lizard. And eventually, seeing the doctor, back, Dr. Connors. And it was just really nice seeing them in his human form again, because it's been a while. And then, of course, like I said, with Sandman. And like I said, Electro. And I like how when you see Electro and Andrew's Peter talking, like, you're there and all that, and him kind of having this little moment, like, you never saw me, you weren't seeing me back. Of course, you remember his film, and him explain to him about himself and all that. And I like when he made a comment. He was just like, talking about Superman. I really thought, you black. He was like, oh, I'm sorry. He said, maybe some black Spider-Man out there somewhere. And yes, it is. I love that they said that. I'm like, okay, I see that. I caught that. So I love that. And then, like I said, seeing, Lizard turn back and him just kind of looking a little emotional. And the last one that was left was Green Goblin. He shows up right on time to show mischief. And of course, Ock tries to help, and he messes with one of his tentacles and all that, and, trying to take the cube and all this little scuffle here and there and all that. And then he puts it in the cube to blow it up, whatever and all that, just causing more damage, whichever, which causes situations where the lizard tried, to get to the cube through, that MJ, and it causes him to come out the little portal. Because, of course, Buddy Boy's stuff isn't working at that moment. He knows how to open it, but he doesn't know how to fully close it. So, we'll have to see how that's going to turn out, because that means that there's some lessons to be taught, but we'll have to see. Uh, all I can say when it comes to Green Goblin, William Dafoe, again, he knocked it out of the park. His sinisterness, whatever. I love when he plays evil in anything, and he plays evil with Green Goblin so, so freaking good. And you could see the look on Peter, aka Tom's face when he finally, had to have the showdown, because when they were up in that condo or whatever penthouse that belonged to Happy Hogan, they got into it when he decided, oh no, y'all don't need to do anything to yourselves. This is this, and he went to town on Tom, aka Peter, and it was something. So it was like now it was time for him to get a little bit of what he deserved and what he gave. He dished it out, and he got some given back. And I liked how they always kind of give kid gloves to Tom Holland's character Peter a lot in the first two, Freeze was nothing where he was really getting into anything where he's really showing his fighting, skills per se. Is always, of course, Spider-Man with the webs, whatever, swinging, whatever, and all that, a couple of kicks back, whatever. But this time, the brother was throwing hands, and she, lifting up and body slamming. I was like, wow, he really was, to the point always when he was about to really kill him. He was like, I'm done with you. You took my Aunt May from me. And I like how Toby interjected. He stopped it. He was just like, no, this is not you. Even though we had this discussion, calm yourself, and eventually when he did that, Goblin used that as a way to get upper hand, injuring Toby's Peter. And that's when Andrew kicked it and through that serum, whatever he put in there. And all of a sudden you see how, he goes back to Norman. He's just like, Peter looking at him like, what is he doing? And he's like, and he sees, Toby, like, what have I done? And you can see how Tom wants to be angry and do it, but he's just like, you just kind of a long lost cause, whatever, with the situation. But hopefully, like you said, once they put the stuff in there, he's cured with that instance of him or those, everything in his mind. It is what it is with that. But with that said, I will say, seeing that last and final part coming up where so much damage is happening, where some other evil could come through, that's when Tom decided to do something very selfless and decide, I want you, Doctor Strange, to pretty much make it where nobody can, remember Spider-Man Peter Parker. And he knows it hurt him because if his relationship with Ned, of course, relationship with, MJ, it's just really, really bad all around. And you can see he had to say his goodbyes to, of course, his other bros, his other Spidey, bros. And I love that scene they had together. And eventually working his way over to Ned, Ned getting his special handshake, and it's like, don't forget us, try to find us, find a way back to us if you can. And of course, MJ was just like, she straight up said, it's like, I can't stand magic. I hate magic. It's like, because of what it's doing after they've come so far. The first, movie, her being, always, with the little comments and, comebacks, whatever and all, but deep down she kind of liked him. And then when the second one is introduced and she finds his reveal of who he is and all that, and certain things are said, whatever, where feelings are made present, and here we are where they finally are together as a boyfriend girlfriend, and now have to give it up. So I felt the emotions between the two of them, Tom and Zendaya. And it was just really a nice scene. It was so bad for her, but I love that, they got to have these little words, and he made it aware that what was going to happen to them. And it eventually does. And you kind of see where he ends up going to her place of business, to kind of see her. He has something all planned out to say, and didn't go that well. He kind of stopped himself. Ned comes in, does not know him at all. He gets his coffee, and then he just kind of hears him talking about MIT and all that, but then he just ends up leaving, saying thank you, I'll see you around or whatever. And she kind of looks hesitant when he walks out, kind of like, because he makes a comment about something she always, one of her sayings. But yeah, I felt bummed because it's just like all that time, just to go by. And even Doctor Strange, because he says once he does it, none of us will remember you. He's like, like, I'll see you around, kid, And from there, you see the scene of the graveside with Aunt May. He's there, and of course, Happy Hogan shows up, and he's like, how you know her? Like I knew it through Spider-Man. It's like, oh, okay, no other questions to be answered or whatever. It is what it is. And then it kind of shows him where it looks like he is, getting himself a little place, like a little apartment. And then he's just kind of, fixing up whatever. But then I love the ending where you see him in the suit. And I love the suit they put him in at the end. I was like, I recognize that suit. It was just so nice and fitting for the ending where it shows him kind of barreling right out of his apartment window and out there amongst the people, and checking to see if there's anything happening out there on the streets. It was just such a good movie. I really enjoyed the film so much, you guys. I can't say it enough. I just don't know how you can top it, because being that, a lot of people are like, oh, I like this particular Spider-Man, I like this, whatever. But then we're getting this movie where it has all three of them together. It's just like full circle, and I love it. And then just kind of knowing a little bit about the multi-universe, like an Easter egg. I'm gonna bring it up because I just realized at the end, when we get the end credit, we get to see, Eddie Brock and Venom, here Venom, and he's like some little bar or whatever talking to the man. He's talking about, all these other little, superheroes out here and all that you might not know about, and how my family members, people were missing for 5 years and this and that and other, and he's just taking all this in, and they were talking about one particular character and talking about Peter. Well, maybe I need to go, to New York, and I need to meet this Peter. And I'm like, huh? Go where? Meet who? Okay, all right, let's see. And eventually he's getting up, but then he eventually kind of disappears. But then he leaves a little treat, a little something behind, you know. And I'm just like, okay, we're gonna see what's gonna happen with that, because this has been a discussion, with what was going on, Disney, Marvel, and Sony. And at first people were about to be pissed, about to have lose their minds, and then of course they came back and redid, a new little deal. And I know they're considering, figuring out what they're gonna do next. What's the next phase for Spider-Man now? And then also what's gonna happen with Tom, in the instance of how many more is he gonna be doing? What kind of contract gets set up with, with that. I mean, he is doing other movies. I know he has another movie that was Uncharted that's gonna be coming out. So just interested to see how that's going to bode, if he's gonna do a few more. But I know some people really don't want to see anybody else in it after this, because they're like, if you do it, then let some years go by. But the way Marvel set up, they want to figure out where he's going to fall into line. But right now, he's not. So we have all these other things in the phase 4 going on. So we'll just have to see where he's going to fall in line with any other next films he's going to show up, when they're going to do it. Because I know Tom Hardy wants to do another Venom film. He really wants him to be in it, and I know he's made it abundantly clear. So I hope that does happen. I hope it's not too far out. Tom is still rather young, so he can still do that. Because I said, as time goes on doing these type of films, I know after a while it takes a toll when you're doing special movies with a lot of sequences, action, things of that nature. So with that said, again, love the film. I loved everything about it, the storytelling, definitely the comedy aspect of it. Seeing characters from previous films, definitely always a lovely highlight. I love, like I said, the emotions, just seeing Andrew and Toby, and definitely Toby, because the reason I say it like that is because I haven't seen Toby Maguire in anything in such a long time. I don't know if he had left show business, was just on hiatus, or just taking a long break, or he just stopped acting altogether. It's been a long minute since I've seen him in anything, so that part made it even more exciting, just to see his face. And yeah, and I will say this: he did make a little comment when he's talking to Andrew, talking about like room for love, whatever, and all that. He did hint on, it's, what, how did he say it? It's kind of complicated, something with MJ, but whichever and all. So I'm like, oh, so in your universe, you and MJ, still sticking out. I'm like, okay, all right, I like the sound of that. So I thought that was really cute. Uh, yeah, just everything about it. I didn't like. I just hated that we had to lose Aunt May. That really bummed me out. Again, seeing all the villains, seeing all those particular characters, I love that they came back. Uh, yeah. And then when it came to all the villains, I mean, the one that really stood out to me, honestly, was William Dafoe / Green Goblin. He just, he just, oh my God, he did an amazing. All of them did their thing, but that one right there, I just can't say enough about Defoe. My rating out of this 10, I'll give this a 9. I just loved it. I just really feel like we were robbed of not seeing Doctor Strange and the lizard scene. I wanted to see that sequence. I really wish they showed that to us. That's just me, little, just a little rant on that little part. Other than that, everything else about the film, I truly did enjoy. So with that said, girls, I have talked a lot, but I really wanted to just get it all out. So with that said, comment below. Let me know what you all think. Please leave me your thoughts in the comment section. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next movie review. You guys take care.